Hey folks, Mike here from Sailing and Camping Travels. Hey, I'm just doing some basic maintenance on the tow vehicle here, trying to squeak in an oil change and top off all the fluids before torrential rain sets in for tomorrow. I'm just wondering, when you folks are traveling, what kind of major breakdowns either in your tow vehicle or in the mechanicals in your camper have you experienced? And what do you do when that happens? I got a couple of stories of some examples of what happened to us and how I handled it. Let me know what you think. The intent of this channel is if you're handy and you don't have unlimited funds or want to go out and finance a very expensive RV and you want to get out there and camp anyways, my intention or our intention is to show you how to take something that could be very inexpensive because it needs some work, using that opportunity to get you out there camping and enjoy it. So follow along, enjoy. It's going to be fun, entertaining, and hopefully educational. Alright folks, this is all part of camping life. What do we got going on here? Well, we are at Port Royal Speedway in Pennsylvania. We left home from Rhode Island yesterday. I stopped for gas just a few miles down the road and I noticed there was some transmission fluid all over the back of the vehicle and a tiny puddle on the ground, and as it turns out, transmission cooler line was leaking. So fortunately it looks like it was only leaking when the line pressure went to the moon, towing up a hill. Fortunately, right here in Port Royal there's a Napa store that had all the lines in stock. I'm changing all of them, and I got the brake parts cleaner, degreaser for the vehicle in the front of the camper, and shop towels, a funnel, ATF fluid, and I'm gonna start changing the transmission lines. Let's see how I make out. Well, there's the source of the problem, and this is why I suspected it was a tranny line, is because all of the fluid leak was way ahead of this front cross member, and it's a pretty common problem. You can see it was probably spraying directly at the idler arm, and it hosed this whole thing down with tranny fluid, and it coated the back of the vehicle, the underside of the vehicle, the front of the camper. So there's going to be some cleanup work that needs to be done. So I bought all three lines because while I'm here I might as well do them all, regardless of whether I'm on the road in the dirt or at the garage at home. Alright, that was a success. Just did a pressure test on the transmission and no more leaks. Thankful for that. Alright, just took the test drive back to the parts store that I got all the things, and I came here specifically to thank the owner of the store for having everything I needed in stock. Test drive is going great. Hopefully we're back on the road. Vacation is back on schedule. Alright folks, it's 4th of July weekend, Monday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When I left the racetrack this morning, I got just 50 feet out of the parking lot and my service brake system light came on. Thought it might have been a wheel sensor or something. And with a little investigation, it ended up being low master cylinder fluid, which only means one thing: a leak. Well, that whole cluster of brake lines that goes to the ABS pump, which is way back here, there's a whole cluster of at least 4 lines right in that area. One of them's leaking. Well, what do you do on a holiday weekend while you're on vacation trying to camp? You find your local parts store. And once again, Napa came through. I got in on the bucket deal, saved 20%. And the only brake kit that I could find, brake line kit, was this one in stock for over an hour and a half radius on any parts store that has an online system. The name should probably scare you a little bit. I'll let you know how I make out. I'm gonna replace one by one, and we're camped out here for a little while, and I'm gonna get a start on it today. So a lot of blessings in this. First of all, the brakes stayed under us through some mountainous roads, towing the full load with the camper, and somehow or another the owner of the Napa store decided to be open till 2 o'clock on July 4th. So we raced over there, had the parts in stock, got what I thought I might need, and we're gonna get started. Alright, I guess I'm starting with the worst one first, which is okay with me. This one goes over to the right front, goes all along the frame, up by the steering box, crosses over to the other side. This is the longer of the two. I'm going to try matching up a line and then see how I make out getting it back in. Alright, I got 2 out of the 4 done. The second one that's done is the longest one that goes all the way over to the left front. I'm sorry, dyslexia. Right front. And I've got it run along the cross member and up around the steering box, and that's all the way back to the ABS pump. 2 more to go. Alright, I don't know if you can see it, but there's all of the brake lines, the front ones anyway. I'll remove this number 4 in the pile. The last one is the left front, back to the ABS pump. What I do is I put a little piece of tape on the end while I snake it through so no dirt and debris, and then I put a little flag piece of tape on here to keep the fitting from getting away from me. Alright, let me snake this one through. Alright, there's all 4 brake lines run and hooked up. I got fluid in the master cylinder. I'm letting it gravity bleed. I kick myself for not being a little more aware of this, but if you put these back in position, these are completely concealed by this giant wire and harness. It's probably why they rotted, because it trapped everything in between the two. There's another wire and harness here that comes out and snaps into here that even further conceals it. So beating myself up a little bit, but hopefully we don't have to worry about it now. See if we can get some brakes bled without having to trip the ABS box with a special computer tool. Folks, this is the wrap up of the brake line story. So I had replaced every brake line from the master cylinder to the ABS pump, and from the ABS pump to the front left and right brake calipers. I didn't have to touch the back at all. Anyway, I did bleed the back brakes because I knew that I had disturbed the line that fed the back to the master cylinder to the ABS pump, and I could not get the front brakes to bleed. I watched a couple of YouTube videos. I knew that I had to cycle the ABS pump to get it to work, and one of the YouTube channels called Daninator said, hey, just go out on a gravel or slippery road, slam the brakes on, get that ABS pump to activate. And this is the road that I did. Now, this road is probably over half a mile long, and I literally faded the rear brakes out cycling that ABS pump a ton of times, because everybody you talk to says you gotta do it a lot. You've got to cycle that pump many times. So I took advantage of this nice long gravel road. I stayed in the loose stuff between the edge and the crown, and it was very easy to get the ABS pump to activate without tearing up this gravel road. So you know, I did try to cheat. I said, well, let me go to a shop that has a scan tool and get that pump activated, pay them to bleed the brakes. And to be frank, you know, today's Monday, July 5th. The shops around here are booked for weeks in advance, and I couldn't even get in and get the job done. So I had no choice but to go back to the old school method here and get it done. So shout out to Daninator for the video that he posted on making this work. It absolutely worked fabulously. As soon as I did this, driving it back to where we're stopped and camping, I could already tell that the pedal was getting some action for the front brakes. Still a lot of air in it, I could tell from the pedal. And as soon as my wife and I bled the brakes, man, I was getting a good stream. A bunch of air came out, and in a matter of 2 or 3 sessions of bleeding each caliper, the brakes work perfectly, and as a matter of fact, right now the pedal is probably better than I've ever had since I've owned this truck. So there must have been a little bit of air in some lines all along. So complete blessing. The fact that the brakes didn't completely go out on us while we were towing our camper on these mountainous roads and made it to a campground safely. The fact that a parts store was open on Monday, July 4th. Shout out to Bloomsburg Napa Auto Parts and having the parts in stock. So once again, a little bit of stubbornness, persistence, basic tools that I carry with us when we travel, and obviously some basic knowledge and some help from people in this community. I got it done. Alright, that's a wrap. Now we can hook the camper up and continue on to our destination, wherever that might be. Alright gang, we're in the parking lot of the big orange building, and the reason is our refrigerator has failed, and I think we might have bought the only refrigerator for the size that fits our unit used on 4th of July weekend in Pennsylvania. So we're now in Virginia. We tested this on the ground. It made cold, so we're going to take all of the good parts off of ours that we know the burner and everything is perfect. We're going to do a cleanup of this one and swap everything over and get it installed in the camper. So here we go. Alright, so I've got the new fridge, new to us fridge. All the rust wire brushed off all of the burner tubes and the heating coils, and I used high heat Rust-Oleum paint to put some rust preventative on it to keep this from happening anytime soon. I'm about to pull the unit that went bad out of the camper, and because we have a garage door, I can take it right out the back. Alright, let's get to it. So I'm pretty sure what I'll find when I take mine apart is something similar to this, but maybe worse. The fiberglass insulation probably had a leak from the vent up top. The water came in. Obviously gravity makes it go downhill. This is the bottom area, and you can see where it collected here and rotted things out. Fortunately, the burner tube and the cooling unit tube that's encased in this was in pretty decent shape, but as preventive maintenance I wire brushed the entire thing, cleaned it with Simple Clean and then some brake parts cleaner, and then used high heat black paint on it. And then I'm going to use the best insulation, maybe even part of the insulation that's the cleanest on this and part of the insulation that's cleanest on the other, and use the best tube. I'm hoping I can use the tube off of mine that's inside the camper still, and just get the best parts out of everything in one unit. Well, there's the culprit. Yellow means ammonia leak. Somewhere down there in the bottom. Alright, it's back in and running on propane. Temperatures dropped 6 degrees in a half hour, so the cold plate's getting cold. It's more than the old one was doing. We're gonna move on down the road and let this thing percolate. Just got rid of the thing responsibly. Okay folks, it may seem like the start of our vacation was a complete disaster. Well, it was stressful, but the vehicle that I drive is 20 years old. I did not buy it until it already had 200,000 miles on it. Kind of a part-time mechanic. I've been driving old and used vehicles for years, so this is actually kind of common for me. And I know that many of you folks might not be capable of doing those sorts of things, but it just so happens that
I was blessed with a little bit of skill and mechanical aptitude, and I was able to get a lot of that stuff done. The other thing that is required to get some of that stuff done is a certain amount of tools to bring with you. So what I'd like to do is just kind of show you what I bring with me on every trip. Now, I have a pretty comprehensive toolkit. This is a $99 Harbor Freight special, and it has a lot of things. You know, obviously it's got the typical wrenches and the most common pliers and a lot of Torx bits and other things, so it comes in handy. And it also has a huge amount of sockets and nice 1/2-inch drive with a lot of leverage. So that has been something that I have carried with me, or some version of this, way back in the very early 90s. I had a kit similar to this, and a jack. I got jumper cables here, and I have this jack. Now, this is a 2-ton short and narrow floor jack. Now, this isn't you know, commercial quality or whatever, but as you saw in that video, I was able to change the rear tire on my 3/4 ton Yukon XL with the camper still hooked to the back. That was just a valve stem that broke, by the way, on the way home. So just as a closure to all of those incidents that we had to work through in the first week of our vacation, we were able to go out for a total of 4 weeks, and we put a total of 6,500 miles on the package through that time. So this allows me to change the spare tire on my camper. It allows me to change the tire on this in a super quick fashion. Now, the tow vehicle has all kinds of factory supplied tire changing equipment, but it really is insufficient. You know, you could have a lug nut that's over torqued and you end up breaking the tools to get it apart. So I like using this, and I bring again, this is like a $12 Harbor Freight 2-foot long 1/2-inch drive breaker bar. This helps me get the lug nuts broken loose, and I also have the 4-way speed wrench, and I can get off of the highway in just a few minutes. As a matter of fact, the time that I got a flat tire on the camper, I saw it in the rearview mirror, and I got pulled over just as the tire went completely flat. I was able to make it safely to the breakdown lane and pull off the side of the road as safely as I could. And I was able to, from the time I stopped the vehicle to the time I got back in the truck and headed out, and I'm not bragging here, I'm just showing you that with the right equipment, it's important to have this, because it gets you out of that dangerous situation as quickly as possible. 9 minutes from the time I stopped to the time the trailer was on the ground and the lugs were torqued. And yes, I do carry a torque wrench, because if you read the side of your camper and the owner's manual, it says you need to torque or check the torque of your lugs. So this equipment helps me do that. And I will tell you that between these two toolkits, I've been carrying these since the early 90s. Not these particular ones, but at least nearly the same thing. And I had a transmission failure while I was 800 miles away from home, and I was able to remove the transmission with this jack and a set of tools very similar to this, and get it back in the vehicle and get us home again, all in the matter of a day. So again, I know that many of you do not have the desire or even the capability to do that, but in my situation, again, I've always driven very old, used, high mileage vehicles, so you got to kind of be prepared and anticipate that. So these are some of the basics that I bring. And the valve stem deal, which was the thing that I showed you last in terms of the things that caused us some problems in the video. My wife, for my birthday, because I have a race car and we need to air up the tires between rounds at the drag strip, or if we're road racing or on a track day, she bought this cordless air compressor. So it basically is the same kind of packaging as a cordless drill, and it has a digital gauge and a button, rechargeable battery. It gives you the ability to inflate your tires. You know, you could go to bed at night, get up in the morning, you notice that before you roll out, you've got a soft tire. Well, you can pump it up. I pumped my truck tire up to 75 pounds using this battery-operated cordless compressor. And if the battery goes dead, it actually has the adapter to plug it into your 12-volt system in your truck. So this is a very nice complement to the package of tools. And one more thing I purchased, it sounds like I'm a salesman for Harbor Freight, but the stuff you need in an emergency that you may only use once or twice, even in the life of the tools, they're relatively inexpensive, and they do provide a certain level of quality. So this is their entry-level code scanner, and this has bailed me out a few times just trying to diagnose issues with the vehicle. And I have to say, I've actually used this to help other people out more often than on my own vehicle. If somebody has a check engine light and they're worried if they drive it, are they going to ruin the vehicle or something like that, you can plug it in and give them some sort of indication that, yeah, you really need to get it towed to a dealership, or, you know, get it home, and once you get home, get it serviced once you arrive. So, and I also have some higher quality sockets for the lug nuts, just because the lug nuts on this truck get torqued to 130 foot-pounds. Well, if you try to do that with just a cheap chrome socket, you may end up shattering that socket. So, all right, that's it. That's enough yammering. I just want you to kind of be aware of the fact that we made it home successfully. We actually made and salvaged our vacation. Yeah, I had to spend a couple of days underneath the truck getting dirty, but we made it work. And again, like I said, we went an additional, we were already in probably 600 miles into that trip. We went an additional 5,900 miles without an incident, minus the valve stem on the tire, which again, my little air compressor allowed us to get to tire service center. It was a Sunday, and those big chain stores are usually open on a Sunday. And for 25 bucks, I rolled the tire in. They took it apart, inspected the tire for damage, put a brand new valve stem in, mounted the tire up, aired it up for me, and I was back on the road in an hour. And while they were working on it, my wife and I ate lunch inside the camper. So anyway, some things are going to happen. It doesn't matter if it's a 20-year-old or a vehicle or a 2-year-old tow vehicle. Chances are you're going to have a problem. By the way, the failure of my refrigerator, the refrigerator started going warm actually the first day, the day the transmission lines went on this, and we tried everything under the sun. We went to YouTube University to try to figure out, you know, is there some thing that we can do to recover it, and it ended up being the telltale sign was the yellow residue dripping out of the very bottom of the chimney. But I actually think that that refrigerator failed due to the vibration and the shock from some of those terrible, terrible, terrible construction zones. So again, new vehicles break down, old vehicles break down. This is what I do to try to be prepared in case that does happen. And as it turns out, we had a lot of things happen on this trip, but we didn't allow it to ruin our vacation. So let me know what you think in the comments. If If you're with me this long, obviously you found it entertaining or interesting. So give me a thumbs up and the like button if you would, please. Thanks again. We'll see you in the next video.